Hi there. This is this is Coffee with Pastor Joseph, and I know it's supposed to be something that happens late. Actually, it's supposed to happen Tuesday or Wednesday every week, and this week here I am. It's Saturday evening, and I'm doing coffee time with Pastor Joseph. So it is later than it's supposed to be, and I am here as just the middle of my week was busy. I was at a summit for pastors, and so I just kept thinking about something that happened earlier this week and just wanted to chat about it. So you notice the title was "Praying for Trials?" Question mark. Coffee with Pastor Joseph. And so that's one of the things I want to talk about. I just want to talk a little bit about trials, but I also, it's Labor Day weekend, and every time that it's Labor Day weekend, I always have to be like, what is Labor Day weekend? Like, I work all the time, so what? And so, but it actually is about work. And so when I looked it up, this is what it specifically said. It said that Labor Day weekend. Looks like my search went away. I had that the labor parties, so the actual the labor unions, not the parties, I should say. The labor unions were advocating for a day, basically a holiday, a national holiday, to celebrate a lot of all the workers, the economic and other contributions that the people who work make to society. So a lot of the world has these same days around May 1st. And so it's interesting that we have it at this time. So, for instance, in the United States, Labor Day is the first Monday in September. It's a creation of the labor movement and is dedicated to the social and economic achievements of American workers. Constitutes a yearly national tribute to the contributions workers have made to the strength, prosperity, and well-being of our country. And so I was like, okay, that's interesting. If you look at there is another, so 80 different countries have the International Workers' Day on May 1st, which is the old May Day. And so it's interesting that the socialist and communist parties were trying to choose May Day as their Labor Day, but then the United States has September, this Monday in September, as Labor Day. So all I know is that I celebrate work and the work of my hands every day of the year. I don't always work as hard physically now as I used to, but I still work. And now I do a lot of work with computers and with filmmaking. So my work has changed over the years, but I do, as not just from my culture, but also just from my family and from just for what it brings. As a believer in Jesus Christ, I believe that the work of my hands is sacred and it is something because of what it represents when I'm working to provide for my family. It's a good thing. And so that's what I see a lot with labor. And I often think of that, what Jesus said. He said, "Come unto me, all you who are labor and heavy laden." And so and he says, "I will give you rest." And he talks about his yoke and us taking on his yoke with him. And the amazing thing for me is that when Christ asks us to come and work with him, it's not that he's asking us to come do something that he doesn't know how to do or doesn't have the tools for. He does. He is glad to give us the tools that we need to accomplish the things that we're trying to do. And so part of Labor Day, I think, is celebrating what the achievements are of people who are working, but it may be putting it a little bit in the context of someone who is looking at it from a world outside of Christianity. And I'm looking at it from within. What is the Christian worldview for labor? And so I'm not wanting to actually talk about Labor Day. It is Labor Day weekend, so I ended up talking about it. I have a few other thoughts that are on my mind. One of the things that's on my mind is this, and this happens quite a bit. I'll be with someone, and they will say something along the line of, so this week it was like this. Let me just find the scripture here. So I don't have the scripture to throw up on the screen. I just have it here. But so in James chapter 1, it says, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. All right, there's one verse, James 1. Then over here in Peter, 1 Peter, it says, in this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while, if need be, you have been grieved by various trials, that the genuineness of your faith, being much more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to praise, honor, and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ, whom having not seen you love, though now you do not see him, yet believing you rejoice with joy inexpressible and full of glory. So one of these says, and the final part of that paragraph is receiving the end of your faith, the salvation of your souls. And so both of these talk about rejoicing, and they talk about joy, and they both mention trials. And they both talk about how our faith, we come to the end of our faith, or our faith is perfected. And so the question, hey Levi, thanks for joining in. The question that I have, and this is what I keep hearing from different people, and it's this: if God is able to use my trials to perfect my faith, and if perfecting my faith is a good thing, should I ask God for more trials? And so I really mean this question, because this is a question that even this week someone brought it up and was praying for more trials. And I often think about this, because this is not the first time, but every time when I hear this, there's a few thoughts that come around in my mind. And so one of them is this: it is the redemption of Jesus that makes the trials be worth anything. It is not the trials in themselves. The trials, this is a cup. It has coffee in it right now. Right now, if I spill this cup, if I knock this cup, I can get coffee out of it. But this coffee cup is not actually the source of my trial, of coffee. This coffee cup holds something in it that is good. And so this is not a perfect example, but it is one example. If I came along and I bumped this coffee cup and coffee came out and I said, wow, I want coffee. I want more coffee. I like coffee. I'm licking it off the table or the floor and I'm like, that's good coffee. I want more of it. So I just start smashing the cup around, bashing the cup, throwing the cup around, and expecting more and more coffee to come out. At some point, I run out of new coffee because this mug is not the actual source of coffee. This mug is just holding it. It holds it in because I manipulated this cup. I was an external source. I was an external force. I took it to the source and I added coffee to it, and it carried coffee to me, and I can drink it out of here, but this is not the source of my coffee. In the same way, a trial, when I submit a trial to the right external force, if I give it to God, if a trial is coming my way, and I give it to God, God can take that trial and he can use it for his glory and his purposes, but the trial itself is not the source of the benefit. The trial is just a thing that is holding it in that moment, that even is almost like me bumping the cup. It's not even the cup. And so there's this very real sense in which if I start praying for more trials, that I may be missing on something bigger. And with the something bigger, if I look at, when it says here, let's go back to James. So in James chapter 1, there in verse 2, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. Let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. So is the trial the source of me lacking nothing, or is that from my God? Because if we look here, let's keep going down in this verse. It says, in chapter 1, verse 17, it says, every good gift, every perfect gift is from above, comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. Of his own will he brought forth by the word of truth, that we may be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. And so if you look at James, if you look at Peter, if you look at a lot of these different, the apostles, they are constantly pointing us back toward Christ. And so even in this, he's saying, look, your trial is only being used by God. Your trials can be used. And so in my experience, I can waste perfectly good trials. I can destroy trials and not actually get any benefit out of them. Encounters with God, on the other hand, he is God. He is good. And so when he comes and he bumps into me, he can change me. And he has a way of being able to get around even my roadblocks. When I don't want to think about what he's doing or how he's doing it, he can come and say, Joseph, I really, really need you to look over here. I really need you to see it this way. And I can look that way and I can see it. But a trial often comes, and here's the thing. Jesus said in the world we're going to have trials and tribulations, but not to be concerned because he has overcome the world. And so just on a very basic level, this is what I'm trying to say. This is what I always, whenever someone says we should pray for more trials in order to make more faith, in order to create more, the patience, faith, that whole line, my thought is, well, maybe we should. But what we really are saying, our heart's desire is we want more of the fruit of the Spirit in our life. So we could ask for the trial and expect God then to use that trial to develop this in me. Or we could go straight to the source, to God, and say, Lord, I need more of you. I need more faith. I need more of patience. I need more of each of these things. And he can build those in me. Even more than that, we could just go straight to the source and say, Father, I need more of you. Now, whenever someone prays and asks for more trials, I don't stress out about it too much because God is able to sort out our own broken prayers and give us the best answer to that prayer that we need. So I don't ever want to get in the mindset where I can't even pray because I'm afraid I'm going to pray wrong and then somehow get a wrong answer, as if praying was about formulas. See, praying is not about formulas. Prayer is about me knowing God, knowing his heart. And so God's heart for me, I find in the New Testament, he wants to equip me. He wants to prepare me. He wants to use me for ministry. He wants to empower me by his Holy Spirit to be able to work alongside him. So this is God's desire. He's not trying to break me. He's not trying to destroy me. He wants to give me life. He wants to show me the way. He wants to open the door for me so I know where to walk. This is what God wants. And so I trust that God can take any prayer, no matter how broken it is, and give me the thing that I need the most. So I don't usually, when someone says, we should pray for more trials, I don't usually immediately go, heresy, because it's not quite heresy. It is asking God for something, and it is asking God for a tool that he uses in our life. However, I think of this over in Corinthians, in 1 Corinthians, in chapter 12, Paul is going through and outlining a lot of the spiritual gifts and explaining how good they are. And it reminds me of the fact that every good gift comes from above, comes from God the Father. And, as his child, I want to pray for, I want to be close to him. I want him to be my source. And so, hey, Barb, thanks for joining in. Glad you're watching. Yes, Levi, I want to go straight to the source. Every time, straight to the source. That's what I want. The clear, I don't want the messed up stream, because I might, it's like this. When I was growing up, there were creeks in the hills of Tennessee, and most of those creeks came from little springs up somewhere in the hills, and you could chase them back and you'd find the mossy banks where the first little bit of water started trickling out, and then there were some more mossy banks and more little water started trickling out, and then this little bitty stream would come down, and then all of these would join the bigger creek. And what would happen is, if someone moved into that area, they would go find one of those mossy springs. They would build in a concrete place, and they would make a nice fresh spring to hold their water, and that's where they would get their water from. But if you didn't have one of those, you would end up going down, downstream, and so this neighbor would have his pigs drinking out of it, and this neighbor would have his horses and cows in it, and there'd be all these other things, and now you're downstream a couple miles, and you're trying to figure out if the water's good or not, because you know where it's coming through. But it's better to just go straight and get a clear crystal fresh from a spring, and not trust the main body of water that's muddying its way down the rocks. So one more thought here with 1 Corinthians 12. It says at the end of chapter 12, where he's talking about all the gifts, he says, earnestly desire the best gifts. And so what I take that to mean is, when I'm reading through here and I'm reading For instance, I read, uh, by one Spirit we're all baptized into one body. And he talks about the different parts. I need to come up here. Here we go. To another, the working of miracles. To another, prophecy. To another, discerning of spirits. To another, different kinds of tongues. To another, the interpretation of tongues. So whenever I read something like that, verse 9 says, to another, faith by the same Spirit. To another, gifts of healings by the same Spirit. When I read that he's giving gifts to people in different ways, and then at the end it says, earnestly desire the best gifts, I don't know if any of these gifts are actually bad. They're all good gifts. They're coming down from God. But he says, desire the best gift. So I'm like, well, which one's the best gift? I don't actually always know what the best gift is, but I do know this. Different times in my life, different seasons in my life, different opportunities, different places, I need different gifts for different work that I'm doing, for different things. If I'm serving God and serving the most poor and suffering, whether I'm a doctor, whether I'm a pastor, wherever I am, I need some kind of gifts for that. And so I desire these gifts. So when I read it and it says, gifts of healings, I'm like, Lord, would you give me the gift of healing for those times when I need that gift or someone needs that gift and I'm praying for them? When it says to another, the working of miracles, I say, Lord, I desire earnestly that you would give me this working of miracles, that when a miracle is what is needed for your glory and for the kingdom, that I would have that gift. And you're a good God, and you give these gifts. And so I'm asking the Father, in the name of the Son, that he would empower me by the Holy Spirit with these things. And so I'm desiring every one of these gifts as I go through here. But at the end of the chapter, when he says, earnestly desire the best gifts, he says, and yet I show you a more excellent way. And then he goes into 1 Corinthians 13. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And then he goes through the entire chapter talking about love. And love was not one of the spiritual gifts up here. Love, if you look, is one of the fruits of the Spirit. So like over in Galatians 5:22, love is one of the fruits of the Spirit. And the way the fruit of the Spirit works is the picture is like the vine, when we're abiding in the vine, and the fruit is just growing out of us because of everything that the branch is supplying to us. And so the more excellent way is that I ask God for himself, that I abide in him, that I allow his word and his Spirit to flow through me, and he will begin to build in me the thing that I need the most. And so if I need love, I will have love. If I need peace, I will have peace. If I need joy, I will have joy. If the tribulation comes and I am just so focused on, yes, this is a trial, I'm so glad I have a trial because God's going to use this trial, it's only useful if the fruit of the Spirit is able to grow in me while I'm in the trial. And so for me, bumping the trial, in the trial, what I'm bumping out of the cup is not the trial itself, and needing lots and lots of trials. I'm expecting to bump the cup of that trial, and out comes the fruit of the Holy Spirit. So that's one of my thoughts about whether do I want to pray for trials. Having read quite a bit of history, and now having lived about 40 years, this is how I think about trials. They're part of life, and there's plenty of them. They're always around. I never have to look far for some trial. It's always here. And so the trial itself is not unusual. The trial itself is actually not good. Trials hurt. They're painful. Some of them are just boring, but they're not good. But when I am submitted to Jesus Christ, he uses the trials to build patience. All of these things through the Holy Spirit. So I don't think that I need to pray for more trials. I think they're here. I do pray daily and consistently, seeking the Lord for his presence to be with him the more excellent way, so that no matter what I bump into, he's growing. And then I pray for the gifts. Lord, I need these. And faith, I love faith in the scriptures. Faith describes so many things. It's a verb, having faith, believing. It's a noun, people of the faith. It's a substantial thing. It's a spiritual gift. It's a fruit of the Spirit. It is an attribute of God. It is an adjective to describe the people of God. We say the people of faith. And so faith is so many things for us. And so I desire earnestly for my faith to be purified, to be growing, to be more, to be drawing me closer to him. But in the end, really, the very end of everything is that it's like it says in Psalm 34. This is one of my favorite Psalms. I have actually quite a few favorite Psalms, so I have to be careful, but this is one of my favorite Psalms. I know I don't have more than 150 favorite Psalms. I know that much. But Psalm 34, verse 8. Well, start in verse. It's all good. Verse 1 says, "I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make its boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear of it and be glad. O magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord, and he heard me, and delivered me from all my fears. They looked to him and were radiant, and their faces were not ashamed. This poor man cried out, and the Lord heard him, and saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord camps all around those who fear him, and delivers them. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who trusts in him. Oh, fear the Lord, you his saints. There is no want to those who fear him. The young lions lack and suffer hunger, but those who seek the Lord shall not lack any good thing." And so it just continues. I love Psalm 34. Taste and see that the Lord is good. This poor man cried out, and I heard from the Lord. And it's a true testimony. So for me, I have tasted and seen that the Lord is good. And where have I tasted that? I have tasted that in the midst of trials. I have tasted that at the high points of my life, when God answered so many prayers and delivered me from so many problems. I have tasted it in the middle of the congregation when I was with all the people. I have tasted it when I was all alone with God out in the woods. I have tasted it when I was working, painting a house day after day. I have tasted it when I was driving across the countryside on long, multi-day journeys across the land. I have tasted it in America. I've tasted it in Mexico. I've tasted it in Peru. I've tasted it in Switzerland. I have tasted it in Italy and Greece. I have tasted the goodness of the Lord everywhere that I have gone. I have tasted the goodness of the Lord. I now know that it doesn't matter where I go or what I'm experiencing, God is good. So I don't think I've got to get back to Peru so I can taste the goodness of God. I just know God is good. And if I turn to him here, if I cry out to him here, I can experience him here. And I don't have to go out back over there. So for me, I think that way. I have tasted him in the trials, but I don't feel like I have to go back to the trial and say, okay, let's do this again, because last time it was really bad, and suddenly Christ came through, and it was so sweet. Christ is always that sweet. And so I will keep walking forward, and I will keep expecting him to be sweet and to be building these things in my life. But I'm going to ask a simple, direct prayer: Father, build more of Christ in me by the power of your Holy Spirit. And then I'm going to figure it out. Let him figure it out. I don't have to figure out how to build it. I don't have to try to create an equation saying, okay, so this many trials with this much prayer equals this much fruit. No, I don't have to figure any of that out. I just pursue him. He figures it out. I know that as long as I live on the earth, I can grow more. I need more of him. I know that as long as I'm here, I really need to see his hand in my life. And so I'm always going to be praying. I'm always going to be searching for him. I'm always going to be asking him to grow and to become more and more of him in my daily life. So that's that thought. Going straight to the source, asking for more of Jesus. I had some books that I wanted to recommend. These books, by the way, like I was going to always recommend a book every time I had a coffee time, but I have enough books. If you look on the shelf back here, and there's another shelves over on this side of me, I have plenty of books. I could always recommend one. but I'm not always thinking about it when I do it. So today, I'm actually going to recommend 2 books. So the first book, there's actually 2 of them. And so there's this one is called Unoffendable, and it's by Brent Hansen. This one is called The Bait of Satan, and it's by John Bevere. Now, it is possible that just by those titles, you could be very concerned about me. So I want to hurry and explain what these 2 are for. The Bait of Satan and Unoffendable are actually about the exact same thing. They're talking about, should a Christian be offended by things that other people do? And so in Unoffendable, the way one of my friends explained it is like, it's kind of like it's a fun, encouraging book to explain how when we are offended, we miss out on the best that God has for us. But then in this book, John Bevere shows us that the bait of Satan, that it's if I'm offended by things, it's not just that I'm missing out, but that I on purpose, when I choose, and you need to read the books, man, but the heart of it is this: if I choose to not forgive people, I'm making myself an enemy of God, and He is not able to bless me. And so we think when someone hurts us that we're not forgiving them, we're withholding forgiveness, we're waiting for them to shape up and do the right thing, that we're somehow hurting them. But what we're really doing is we're shutting off this really sweet access to the Father. And we're plugging the hole where we can't get to the really good stuff. We can't taste and see how good God really is. But the moment we forgive, we're able to experience the goodness of God and receive everything He has for us. And so I really think you should just read these books and be prayerful about it, because, this one, Unoffendable by Brent Hansen, and this one, The Bait of Satan by John Bevere. Both of these, they're good. Either one of these is good, and either one of these you can pray through and say, Lord, what are you saying to me? And see if there's something, because I have had plenty of people that have hurt me in the past in my life. And at different times, I have on purpose gone through and done inventory and prayed and asked, and on purpose chose to forgive people. But even as I was reading these, it again brings it to mind, because there's some things that would somehow sneak back into my life, and suddenly I would find that what is happening, the way I feel about something, is actually blocking God from being able to work in my life. And so this is just a very practical housekeeping tool. And I think part of it is like that when Jesus talked about that house where the evil spirit was kicked out, and then they swept it and cleaned it and everything, and eventually the evil spirit comes kind of meandering back, looking around, and he kind of peeps in the windows and says, it's all clean, it's ready to go. And so he goes back and gets a whole bunch more evil spirits worse than himself. It says 7 spirits worse than himself, and he comes back in and he takes over the house. Well, that's what I feel like with unforgiveness. Is like in the moment when things are happening, I say, Lord, I forgive this person in the name of Jesus, bless them, I choose to forgive. And then life goes on, and different aspects of what they did start bumping into me, and I start hurting, and I just start kind of storing it up a little bit, and storing it up a little bit, and storing it up a little bit, until sometime later, and so you ask me, well, did you forgive them? I'm like, oh yes, I remember the day and the hour. I did. I forgave them. But I didn't always notice, and so it's kind of like that. They come sneaking back in, and they bring worse enemies with them, and years later I can find that I'm still harboring something toward that person. So I don't want to give the whole message, because I can't. I mean, this one actually comes with a DVD, so you can also listen to parts of it. But it's just an important issue for the church today, and you can see what John Bevere thinks of it, the bait of Satan. He thinks that any time that something happens to you and you would have a right to be offended, that is actually Satan setting a bait, hoping that you will grab onto that and not forgive, so that he can capture you and have you in oppression. So those are my 2 book recommendations for Labor Day weekend. I'm sorry, I don't think you can actually order them in time to read them, but maybe you have them on your shelf already and just haven't read them. Go read them. They're good books, Unoffendable and The Bait of Satan. So those are my book recommendations. I already talked about Labor Day. I talked about trials. And I talked about tasting and seeing that the Lord is good. And He is good. He is merciful. He is kind. He is so good to us. And I am so grateful for that. We're in the middle of a huge press and a push to finish the movie that We Three Kings in time for Christmas. You should be able to see it this Christmas. And what happens is that in the middle of having that much work for me to do, there's times when I kind of want to, I just want to go walk in the woods, and I'm not close to the woods, and so it doesn't happen easily. But I just want to back away from what God is doing, and I'm having to remind myself that this is the fact that I'm in the middle of this trial is a real blessing from God, and He is using it. And I prayed for the success of this film, and I prayed to be able to do this film for His glory, and with it came a certain amount of trials, and you'll find the same. There's lots of trials just waiting to attend your life. Don't waste them, but I don't think you have to ask for more of them. Ask for more of Jesus and keep your eyes on Him. He'll provide. He'll provide. If He's like, He's just not, Joseph's just not fully getting it until he has more trials. Well, don't worry. God is fully able to give me the trials that I need. So I don't want to make it sound like the trial is the only way that I can get to what the Father wants, because I don't believe it is. I think it's a slightly misguided attempt at praying for God's hand to be made strong in our life. So, enjoy your weekend. I'm going to try to get this Coffee Times back on track where it's on Tuesday or Wednesday, the way it's supposed to be originally, so that's the middle of the week instead of Saturday night. But if not, it means I have a very full life, and that's okay too. So thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging with me today. And count it all joy when you bump into the trials. And make sure that if the trials are coming through people, forgive them. And if you're having trouble forgiving, maybe get one of those books that I recommended. Thanks for listening, and I will see you guys next week.